part of his theory. It looks like I would not be able to engage in all of his theory. I would examine those two so we can move on to the second theory of why Muslims have lacked success. First of all, we come and we say, when those two professors accuse Islam of limiting women and the role of women in society, how have they come to this conclusion? If it is through the acts of Muslims, yes, we agree. We agree that sometimes in some Muslim countries today, unfortunately, women are suppressed. They are oppressed. They are looked at second or third class citizens, and they have no rights whatsoever. In some countries they cannot vote. In some countries they cannot drive. In some countries they cannot have political representation. Yes, we agree. But is this the teaching of Islam? This is what we have to examine. And once we examine the concept of women in Islam, we have to see when was it that Islam was born, into what circumstance, and what did Islam do for the female gender. Islam was born on the Arabian Peninsula. In the Arabian Peninsula, if a person would have a daughter as a newborn, in the time where Islam was born, the pagan Arabs would bury her alive. وَإِذَا الْمَوْءُودَةُ سُئِلَتْ بِأَيِّ ذَنْبٍ قُتِلَتْ. They would bury their own daughters alive. In fact, one of the companions of Rasulullah was one day quoted to say the following statement. He said, when I remember the days of Jahiliyyah, sometimes I laugh and sometimes I cry. Why do you laugh? He says, I laugh because we would make a god out of dates. We would make a statue out of dates in the morning, and that would be our god. So we do sujood to the god. Then for breakfast we eat a little bit from him. For lunch we eat some more, and for dinner we finish him off. So he said, I laugh at such a mentality that we would make our gods out of dates and then we eat the god. Why would you cry? He said, I would cry because 8 of my daughters, I buried them at birth. But the 9th one, my wife somehow was able to smuggle her outside, to allow her to escape. 15 years later I returned, I saw a young lady sitting. I asked my wife, who is she? She said, this is your daughter, and this is her story. I sent her to my parents. They took care of her. Now she's 15 years old. He said, I pretended I was very happy and delighted. 2 days later I said to her, why don't we go for a walk so I get to know you? He took his daughter. He said, I took a rope, I dug a grave for her, I put the ropes around her and I threw her in the grave. And I watched her suffer until she died. This is the Arabian Peninsula. Furthermore, within the Arabian Peninsula, women would not inherit, but they were inherited. How so? If a person dies, he leaves behind assets, homes, land, property, money, and women. His eldest son would inherit the women, his stepmothers. So he would come and he would throw a piece of garment on top of the ones he wanted to marry himself. And he would turn others into slave, and he would give others away to his friends. Furthermore, in the Arabian Peninsula, women were not able to seek education or work or have the ability to voice their opinion. Islam was born in such a circumstance The first thing that Islam did, Allah recognized the position and the existence of women. That there are such individuals that exist in society. Women. And Allah sent chapter 4, Surah An-Nisa, discussing the affairs of women. A whole chapter. Allah is recognizing them. Then Allah sent another chapter entitled Maryam. And Allah spoke of the affairs of Maryam and the position of Maryam. And in there He gave examples of many women, including Asiya bint Muzahim, the wife of Fir'aun. Allah wants to say to the Arab woman, to those who have recently embraced Islam, don't look if your husband is wealthy and rich and has a position. Don't let that frighten you. Come towards Islam and Allah will be with you. Islam is encouraging them. That is why Allah gave the example of the wife of Fir'aun. لَقَدْ ضَرَبَ اللَّهُ مَثَلًا لِلَّذِينَ آمَنُوا امْرَأَةَ فِرْعَوْنَ. She is an example for all of the believers. إِذْ قَالَتْ رَبِّ ابْنِ لِي عِنْدَكَ بَيْتًا فِي الْجَنَّةِ وَنَجِّنِي مِنْ فِرْعَوْنَ وَعَمَلِهِ وَنَجِّنِي مِنَ الْقَوْمِ الظَّالِمِينَ. She said to Fir'aun, I will announce to the public that I worship the Lord of Harun and Musa. He said to her, you should worship the Lord of Harun and Musa, that's up to you, but don't announce it in public. Because if you announce it in public as my wife, people will come and say that he's definitely not a God if his wife doesn't believe in him. She said, that's exactly the reason why I will announce that I worship the Lord of Harun and Musa, so that people would go astray from you. You know what he did to her? He took this woman, he cut her body, and he threw her in a bucket of salt until she died. But what did she say? رَبِّ ابْنِ لِي عِنْدَكَ بَيْتًا فِي الْجَنَّةِ وَنَجِّنِي مِنْ فِرْعَوْنَ وَعَمَلِهِ. Oh Allah, this is for you, and I seek strength from you. Allah also gave the example of Maryam and the difficulties she faced from the Jews. مريم العذراء كلما دخل عليها المحراب زكريا وجد عندها رزقا قال يا مريم أنى لك هذا قالت هو من عند الله. Maryam, a lady that was in the sanctuary praying every day and night, and she would receive heavenly food, she came back with a baby. يا مريم أنى لك هذا. They didn't ask, is this your cousin? Is this a friend's baby? No, immediately. يا مريم أنى لك هذا. لقد جئت شيئا فريا. Oh Maryam, you have committed a huge crime. And Maryam had to live with that. Therefore Allah, number one, told the woman in the Arabian Peninsula to remain strong. That was the first message Allah gave them. Second message, Allah came out and said, I will defend women until they receive their rights equally. How so? A man had an argument with his wife at home. She was walking out of the house. He told her, where are you going? She said, I am going to complain to Rasulullah. Rasulullah? What would he do for you? He said, Rasulullah will help me. She had faith in Rasulullah. When she left, she entered the masjid of Rasulullah and she began to speak to Rasulullah. As she started uttering the words, Rasulullah said to her, wait a minute. Jibreel has come. What has he said? Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. قد سمع الله قول الذي تجادلك في زوجها وتشتكي إلى الله والله يسمع تحاوركما. Ya Rasulullah, Allah has interfered. Allah hears the whispers of this woman complaining to Ya Rasulullah, and Allah shall be defending her. Therefore, Islam gave a complete shift of paradigms to the Arabs of how they perceive women, how they treat women. Furthermore, Allah said no more inheriting women, now they will inherit. They will inherit from father, mother, husband, son, every aspect of society. Some people say, well, Sayyid, woman's inheritance is less than the men. So Islam didn't establish complete equality. No. Even though the subject needs a thorough analysis. But Islam says if a woman at any time was in need, would she go beg? Or does she have to work? Islam says woman doesn't have to work. And neither does she have to beg. It is the obligation of Baytul Mal to take care of her expenses at any time given. Furthermore, Islam, at the time of pagan Arabs, women have to pay dowry to marry a man. Women have to pay. Islam came and said, no, the man will pay dowry to the woman. A man would not spend on his wife. Islam came and made the woman wajibatun nafaqah. You have to spend on your wife, or else you would get a legal divorce. This is what Islam introduced to the Arabian Peninsula then, not today. Furthermore, you think it stops here? No. Today, if you see in the United States of America, there are women trying to run for vice president and this and that, and have political representation, and have a political voice that is bold and vivid. Look at what Islam did 1,400 years ago. The Christians of Najran came to Rasulullah, and a famous story that you have heard, they didn't get to an agreement with Rasulullah. So they said, Ya Rasulullah, we would not enter Islam. Fine. Pay your dues. They said, we will not pay. Rasulullah asked them for mubahala. Mubahala. Mubahala was a delegation from the Muslims going towards the Christians. And that extremely important political delegation, after Amul Wufud and the strength of Islam, Allah says, قُلْ تَعَالَوْا نَدْعُ أَبْنَاءَنَا وَأَبْنَاءَكُمْ وَنِسَاءَنَا وَنِسَاءَكُمْ. Rasulullah took with him Fatimah al-Zahra, salawatullahi alayha, representing the Muslim woman of the Ummah. 14 centuries ago, women had political representation in Islam. Furthermore, today, yes, in some Muslim countries, Taliban may say women could not seek education. Rasulullah not only gave the ability for women to seek education in his time, but he also gave them the ability to teach, to become professors. Fatimah al-Zahra, salawatullahi alayha, was that professor, and was that teacher, and was that mentor to whom? To the greatest of Sahaba, to the best of Sahaba, to the highest of Sahaba such as Salman and Jabir ibn Abdullah al-Ansari. Jabir was the student of Fatima. Salman was the student of Fatima. And that is how Jabir narrates Hadith al-Kisa. Jabir ibn Abdullah al-Ansari narrates Hadith al-Kisa on first hand from Fatima al-Zahra. He was a student of Fatima. Salman was a student of Fatima al-Zahra. Therefore, our answer and our response to the first allegation is it's false. Islam not only gave equality to freedom, but Islam gave them the respect that they did not have. The respect that was missing globally towards the perspective of women. Second, is that he says Islam doesn't recognize religious freedom. So you have to only be Muslims. If you're not a Muslim, we have nothing to do with you. On the contrary to other religions,